What's going on, everyone? Desktops Gaming here. Welcome back to the channel, and it's CES 2021. We actually did get the invite this year, but as you can see, we're not there right now because it's all digital this year. So pretty funny, the first year we were invited to the event, it would be all online. So we figured the first one we would dive into today would be some of the Intel announcements that just finished up. We'll go over their new Rocket Lake, as well as some of their new lower wattage processors that they announced and talked about during their keynote. So let's go ahead and dive into that. All right, so in their keynote, they actually talked about kind of trimming back and focusing on just frequency this year at CES 2021. It's kind of a strange jump looking at the highest end 10900K, them rolling back to 8-core 16-thread versus the 1020 that we saw last generation. They're expected to come out in Q1 of this year. Like I said, they still didn't give us an exact date yet, but basically going over everything else. Let's see. They talked about a up to 19% IPC performance increase from the 10900K, going into Rocket Lake as chips. Like I said, we'll obviously have to wait to see for some independent reviewers on whether or not that is the case. But basically, like I said, they're talking about an IPC increase of up to 19% across the board. They also did release a whole line of new mobile processors, their Core H series. These would be, for your low-power laptop processors, and not overall unimpressive. Like I said, they are touting up to 5 gigahertz single core at 35 watts. So I mean that is pretty good considering such a low-power chip can reach that kind of clock speed. Compared to some of their other mobile processors they've released in the past. They claim that they've improved the integrated graphics on the chip up to 50%. Again, not really any numbers needed or any numbers that would give us any indication of what that means exactly, but that's what they're saying. But basically, the star of the show was the 11900K. Like I said, set to debut this first quarter this year. Like I said, 8-core 16-thread processor, rated for a 5.3 boost with a 4.8 gigahertz single core and all-core turbo frequency. Like I said, so Intel's still using their thermal velocity boost to reach that 5.3 single core, and they're showing it's stacked against the 5900X on a series of games running at 1080p on high. They look to be beating the 5900X in certain games, but I mean the 10900K can do that as well, depending on the game. So, they're showing percentages anywhere from 2 to 7 to 8% across a couple different titles. So I mean, it's still one of those things. We'll have to wait and see. Intel's still talking about putting their bar support down as well. So I mean, like I said, we'll still have to kind of wait to see how that bears out. But like I said, that was the main things they touched on during the conference, was actually going over, what Rocket Lake was going to do, what it was going to be, and how it would compare against, the highest end AMD chips. When they showed off those benchmarks, like I said, always take those with a grain of salt, because we never know how that's going to be, or what that's going to go over. Until we see some independent reviews, independent testing done. Like I said, definitely wish I could get my hands on one for sure. Haven't built an Intel system in a while, so that would be cool to do. Like I said, we'll definitely be on the lookout for those when we can get our hands on one. But basically saying it'll reach up to 5.3 gigahertz. Just to kind of recap here, it'll support faster DDR4 3200 RAM. Of course, that's before XMP profiles and everything are enabled. That's just a increase from its previous stock settings. And they will support PCIe 4.0, and they'll be backwards compatible into existing 4000 series chipsets, as well as the new upcoming 500 series motherboard. So they're keeping the same socket basically. And they did say that their upcoming hybrid kind of Alder Lake chips will arrive in the second half of this year. Basically, that's their new design for their, I think they're calling it the big small technique they're going with. So it's like they're basically a refined version of their 10 nanometer architecture. But like I said, Rocket Lake still 14 nanometer. I don't know how many pluses we're on at this point, but like I said, those didn't change, just mainly the IPC performance there. and that was the biggest takeaway. You know, more instructions per clock was the biggest takeaway, with about the same amount of base and boost as we saw with the previous generation, but like I said, with 2 cores cutting back. So like I said, so what do you guys think about that? Like I said, definitely let me know down in the comments below. You know, do you care about the core decrease? Do you, like I said, do you do anything that would require that? Or like I said, would you rather have the extra cores, maybe something like an AMD processor would offer? We don't really know whether the multi-thread performance will supersede single core performance. Is the most important thing in PC gaming. But like I said, right now we're just looking at, mainly single core performance being, one of the biggest things in games until games can start utilizing more cores, which, some of them are now. But typically IPC and higher clock speeds will win the race in gaming, excuse me. So that's why we still, we saw such a big leap forward with AMD's previous generation and to its current 5000 series, was because they increased their IPC so much, even though they weren't hitting Intel on all of the clock boost and the higher frequencies and as much overclocking range on other chips. That IPC performance really showed us that it matters more about that than just, having higher clocks to get more frames. All right, so that covered the Intel announcement. That's the main 2 things that went over, just their 11900K as the new flagship, and then like so they talked about some of their mobile processors a little bit. Those were pretty impressive, I would say. Rocket Lake, I still want to wait and see what's going to go down on that. Since we, I don't like trusting, and you guys shouldn't trust. Their numbers always, of course, always wait for independent reviews on whether it be Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, whoever it may be. Always wait for independent reviews before making any kind of purchasing decision. Pre-ordering is how they get away with everything, so don't do that. But like I said, the mobile processors were pretty impressive. 5 gigahertz at such a low power part is pretty cool. And like I said, I'm still curious to see how the 11900K performs, considering it's, they cut 2 cores and 4 threads off, but still shows similar clock speeds, but with the supposed 19% IPC performance gain over previous generations. So again, one of the things we'll have to wait and see, but I think it about wraps it up for this part of the coverage for CES. We'll be doing some throughout the week here. I appreciate you guys stopping by. Take it easy.